Welcome to Lyme Time. I'm Allie from the Tick Chicks. We are all more than Lyme disease and chronic illness, and together we stand with you to overcome and rise. I'll bring you closer to the experts in cutting-edge treatments and even a few unexpected ways of healing. I'll ask the questions you want answers to regarding Lyme disease and successful ways of getting you closer to 100%. We are in this together and will not be defined by Lyme.
All opinions in this episode of Lyme Time are those of Emily Levy and not Mighty Well.
Welcome to a new episode of Lyme Time. I am thrilled to welcome my guest, Emily Levy. And she is somebody that I just have loved and admired for so long because she took her illness and walked the path into wellness and then kept walking into entrepreneurship to help those people still walking through their pain. And now she's in a whole other realm of healing, which is talking about those alternative medicines that she found after conventional medicine that she feels helped her heal in entirety. And I think that's a really important space in Lyme disease to talk about what comes after conventional medicine. And if you're willing to go and try a few new things, this is what it looks like. Emily is the co-founder of Mighty Well, a patient-centric brand where patients and caregivers can discover, learn, and shop for the best medical products, including Mighty Well's innovative line of medical wearables focused on patients living with long-term IVs. She's also a public speaker, healthcare key opinion leader, the 2025 Wellbeing Champion for the Cartier Women's Initiative Fellows, and Emily is also a 2024 Project Lyme Gala honoree. Emily's journey is deeply personal. After overcoming her own experience with chronic illness and disability, she expanded her focus to wellness, shamanic arts, and Amazonian plant and animal medicines, developing her gifts as a medium, intuitive guide, and combo practitioner. Passionate about bridging diverse worlds and communities, Emily helps people access the resources, networks, and tools to foster nervous system balance, personal transformation, and really deep healing. She believes self-care isn't a barrier to productivity, it's a pathway to meaningful success. As the Wellbeing Champion for Cartier's Women's Initiative Fellows, Emily shares the wisdom gained from her own healing journey, empowering others to deepen their intuition, create rituals for growth, and break free from limiting patterns. Her mission is to inspire others to lead with their hearts, creating personal and collective transformation. I have had the pleasure of talking to Emily in a previous episode of Lyme Time about her medical therapy devices. And she's created all sorts of PICC line sleeves and masks that are comfortable and just anything that makes your treatment experience a more comforting environment. And she's really best known for that. You can find her at mightywell.com for that. But today, I'm welcoming her back to talk about some alternative therapies that people sometimes they hesitate talking about because they're new and they're different. But we are hoping to normalize that for some people experiencing some post-traumatic experiences after Lyme disease or chronic illness. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, Allie. Oh my gosh, just hearing that repeated back to me into the audience, I'm just like, oh wow, that is me. That is where I ended up.
That is you. And I'm so thrilled to have you back on Lyme Time because when we first got connected, it was because you had done an incredible thing with your talking about turning pain into purpose. You had been through your Lyme journey and you developed for anybody who doesn't know what Mighty Well is, they're a great medical device, basically comfort, a wellness brand where, if you have to have a PICC line or if you're get cold during your treatments. It's sort of just, well, I'll let you tell a little bit about Mighty Well, but I do know that we covered in a separate podcast of Lyme Time your Lyme disease journey and how that transformed you into an innovator for medical assistance devices that are comforting and comfortable during treatments. But today, I'd like to discuss in detail other alternative therapies that you're currently crediting in your healing journey. So, first, let's just backtrack a little bit. Can you give a bird's eye view of your health journey up until trying alternative therapies?
Thank you, Allie. I've tried almost everything under the sun that was available to me. And a huge part of that was IV therapy, everything from IV antibiotics to B12 injections, vitamin C infusions, and ultimately IVIG for almost 4 years. And all of this helped me, but I would say it didn't cure me. It didn't get me to a place of remission. And updating all the listeners since the original episode that we recorded that they can go back and listen to. I really feel like my life was saved because of plant medicine, animal medicines, as well as psychedelic therapy and healing modalities. So I've become very passionate about becoming an advocate so people can have the information because this is becoming more mainstream. And I just reflect back on my journey since our last episode, and these healing modalities truly saved my life. And I think
Okay.
it's time we start talking about it.
So, so, so just for everybody listening out there, how many years would you say you tried the conventional routes? And we are giving credit to
Yes,
some success there. So how many years were you involved in that?
definitely. So my chronic illness journey with Lyme being my primary diagnosis spanned 15 years. And I'd say almost 10 of those was in solely conventional Western medicine. Definitely things like acupuncture and body work, but I didn't start integrating at least functional medicine, I would say, until like 2019, 2020.
So,
So
so that was how many years
it's
into
like
it?
10 years, I would say, of just bouncing around from doctor to doctor and spending so much money out of pocket.
And so of those 10 years now, what percentage would you say roughly you felt better?
Yeah. And, with Lyme, it's like week by week, right? So for the 4 years I did IVIG, also had CIDP, which affects the nerves in my legs specifically. I would have like 4 really good days and like 3 really, really difficult days. So it was always a roller coaster, is the best way to describe the journey that I was on for years.
That's exactly how I felt too. I would have these nerves that would pop under my skin and I could see them visually. And so, yeah, the nervous system really goes out of whack for a long time. And so, while I know you did a few things like acupuncture and whatnot while you were doing primarily conventional medicine, would you say that during those 10 years you got to the halfway part? Would you say you healed 50%, 70%? How would you rate that?
It was like different peaks and valleys up a mountain. So, for example, the first time I had a pick and did IV antibiotics for about 6 months, I then had a period of almost 2 years where I was really active, productive. I even went abroad while I was in college and I was able to hike. Um, and then this was like 2016, had a relapse. Then I did a pick for 18 months. And then I never really felt like I got past like 30% better. If anything, what I think happened for me was it prevented the decline from getting worse. I feel like, I had a few very mild seizure like episodes, like those didn't continue after IV antibiotics and things like that. But different periods had different growth spurts, but I was definitely still left with, oh my God, is this going to be the rest of my life? And in 2020, just was completely bedbound and just felt like nothing was working anymore. And I really call this my dark night of the soul.
Mm.
And that's how I ended up exploring alternative therapies.
I think we can all relate to those long, dark nights where you can't sleep and you're just wondering, is this how it's going to look? Because if it's how it's going to look, I can somehow get behind that. But if I push further, and if I just had somebody telling me it will be better on the other side, will that make a difference? And you're sort of stuck in paralysis
Absolutely.
mode. But it sounds like you kind of got yourself overall in general to about a 30% quote unquote better state. And then you were ready to try something new. So let's get into it. Let's start. Sorry, I have a few sirens going by outside, but we'll start here with your alternative therapies. And you've tried a handful that you're ready to talk about and go into that personal discussion as to some of these therapies that, as you say, are becoming more mainstream little by little. And to some people, they might sound a little bit scary, or just maybe people are just so curious that they want to know what's the real true experience. So I know that you and I talked before this interview, and you said you're going to be as transparent as possible because you are saying that these alternative therapies brought you to where you are today. And that is a massive step from being 30% healed to being where you are today. So let's start with IV ozone. And I think most of the people in the Lyme world are kind of, they've said this word before, they've heard this, but they don't know what it is and how a typical treatment would go and how many they should do and is it worth it?
Absolutely. So I learned about IV ozone from my functional medicine doctor. I went to Case Health at the recommendation of another friend in the Lyme community, and Dr. Casey Kelly was phenomenal.
Love her.
Love her. And luckily, a new functional medicine clinic had opened in my home state of Rhode Island. So she oversaw my care with the ozone therapy and other functional IVs. But I went to a clinic locally. And ozone, for those of you who don't know, it's a gas. It's everywhere. I believe it's in the O3 form. They take it out of the air, they process it. In my experience, they took out almost a pint of blood, which was like so freaky to see them like taking out my blood. They would inject it with the O3 gas, which like you see of the vial and you're like, nothing's in there. But there was. Then they would like mix it. And I would do what's called different passes, which I actually don't really know how to explain, but it was almost like different strengths. And they would infuse my blood with the ozone back into me. And this was really a game changer for me. I felt like it was cleaning my blood. I would herx quite often, especially as we went up in the doses. But I did IV ozone at least once a week for almost a year at my local clinic.
Wow.
And it was a few years ago, so I honestly can't remember what the dosage was. But all of this was overseen by the local clinic and Dr. Kelly. And I felt like this was really supportive and just in a way that I hadn't felt my body repair itself. It was the first time I remember feeling like, oh, when given the right tools and with the right equipment, my body knows how to heal. So I highly recommend it if it's accessible to your listeners to at least explore it.
So you did one a week. How long would each treatment last?
It was different with each pass. So I think like the fastest I did it was like from start to finish, maybe 45 minutes. And then sometimes we would run it a bit slower, especially if I was having a herx reaction from the treatment before. I was in and out max 2 hours if we ran it really slow. But it was always about that like 1 pint or 1 liter. Forgive me, I don't remember exactly, but it was enough blood to be like, oh my God, like that's a lot of blood.
I know that this when I first had Lyme disease, that was the thing to do in Europe. And they weren't really doing it a lot over here, or you had to really seek it out. And you had to, there was controversy whether, your blood gets put in glass or in plastic during this whole thing, and then you put it back in your body. And so there were always some glitchy things, I feel like. I mean, but that was many, many years ago for me. And now I feel like it's very mainstream. A lot of integrative medicine doctors are doing it and having great results from it. And so I never really knew how long each doctor would recommend doing the treatment. And I
And
also
I would start and stop too. Like I would take little breaks.
yeah, yeah. I also I think there's a great conversation to be had about, um, you know, the discussion of privilege and what kind of money this takes to do some of these treatments. I always tend to tell people, you can bounce around from doctor to doctor using your health insurance and everything else, and it could take you 10 years, or some people never really make major strides forward. Or you can just try to do things like this and take it off in chunks at a time, because your healing time will be a little faster for most all people. How did you find the cost of
Yeah,
ozone
it's a
therapy?
very real challenge that I faced. I was newly married in my 20s, so the investment, definitely had a lot of help from my parents. I put most of this on my credit card, and at the end of the treatment, I think I had like a breakdown, and my stepdad was like, "We will help you,"
Yeah.
and that is a real privilege. But at the same time, it was okay. I could spend more years in bed. Like by the time I was doing Ozone Alley, I was bedbound for months already. So it was like, okay, I can invest in this. And after the first treatment, I knew it was working for me. I'd say like that's the big thing. Whereas with some of the other more conventional things, I'd take pills for like 2 months, pay hundreds of dollars for the prescription, and still not know if it was working. And sometimes the side effects would be worse. And then I'd have to get a pill for the side effects. I remember that like yellow paint stuff. I don't even remember what that's called, but that was like 2 grand at CVS. Like,
I mean, it's real, people. It is, this is the day in and the day out of having Lyme disease. This is the reality. And whether you're doing conventional medicine, um, or treating each and every co-infection that you have with the different sets of medications slash therapies and alternative therapies, it's the financial burden is huge. And so I do think, we can talk about that another time, but I want to just give people out there a real, we do understand that, but for most people that these things have worked for, I've found that they prefer to just go all in on some alternative therapies and just try to get healed much faster in that way. Okay, let's also talk about ketamine. Now, ketamine is way more mainstream than it was just a few years ago. And it's been used for a variety of different conditions. And it's a little bit more what I would say, I would categorize it as a little more intensive. You have to have a seasoned practitioner doing it with you and prescribing it with you. Tell us about your experience, and were you nervous to go and do it the first time? How did you find the right person to do it with, and just your overall experience with ketamine?
big question. I think this is like the first time I'm going to talk about it publicly. So buckle up.
We're with you. We got you.
So it was actually in 2019. I was living in New York City. I was going through one of the most well-regarded entrepreneurial programs in the country, highly stressed out. Living in the city was making me sicker and sicker. At that point, I had been on conventional antidepressants and as well as like gabapentin for almost 10 years. And I was like, this is not working. Just getting more and more depressed like every single day. And it was again like one of those rock bottom moments that I was like, what is going on with my brain? Like, I remember I used to be so happy. Like, what is going on? And I walked out of the subway. I think it was on like 59th and Lex in the city. And there was this poster alley, you know, like in New York, there's just like posters everywhere. And it was just psychedelic looking. And I think it had the company's name on it. And I walked up to it and I took a picture and I was like, what is this? I later went home, Googled it, and the company was called Mind Bloom, which is now it's an at-home ketamine therapy program. It's available across the country. And I was like, I've never heard of this before. Never had heard of it before. But I started reading their education and I was like, what do I have to lose? And they just had opened a clinic. They had opened a physical clinic in New York City. Fast forward, the pandemic hits, and the date I had it scheduled to go in person to do my first journey with, and you know, they have, it was a telehealth nurse practitioner. She went through my medical history, all the contraindications, whatnot. They canceled, it got canceled, and they had to refigure out their business model, and they changed to telehealth. So fast forward, this when it was finally available and accessible to me again, and they had pivoted their model, I was bedbound at that point for almost 6 months. Dark night of the soul. Wasn't sure I wanted to live anymore. And if I did, you know, at that point I was using a cane to walk. I was like, I'm newly married. I don't know if I'll ever be able to have children. I probably will be in a wheelchair in the next 10 years. Like envisioning, I hate to say like the worst, but actually what I had seen happen to other people in the Lyme community. And I finally did an at-home journey with a sublingual lozenge with a guide through the computer. And it was a 45-minute journey. I was on my couch. You know, they send you a cute little gift box, like a blindfold. I had headphones. My husband was like waiting in the next room. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you need a prescription for that lozenge or?
Yes, you need a prescription. It was out of pocket. It wasn't crazy money out of pocket compared to like everything else, but it was an investment. But I did, I think like 8 treatments. I had signed up for 8 sessions or 6 sessions, something like that. So they had shipped me enough medication. Each journey was different. You know, it's not a psychedelic, but it is very much being classified under the umbrella of this wave of psychedelic therapy. And I remember my first journey was showing me that I was going to heal my life. And Allie, this was a lifeline. It was like a rope dropped from the cosmic sky, being like, I'm going to live. And I'm getting teary about it. Like I was literally at that point where I didn't think I would be here on earth anymore. So to have access to this truly life-saving therapy under, you know, very safe guidelines, working with a licensed nurse practitioner, and working with a guide, having my husband as a trip sitter. I'm not kidding when I say this saved my life, and ketamine can be a life-saving therapy when done in the right set and setting. I ended up doing about 8 journeys. And then eventually I talked to my doctor about getting off of prescription mental health medication. And I'm not saying this is the journey for everyone. And I did go very slow in tapering off. But I felt like for the first time in my life, I could breathe and that I was remembering who I was before the illness.
Wow. Very, very powerful, you know, and, you know, we don't say this lightly about mental health. Lyme disease strips you of mental health sort of year by year. And like you said, Lyme disease can be a roller coaster. So you can be functioning for a while and then find yourself slipping back and, um, not being the person that you were meant to be, not living in the skin that you used to have, not even having any sort of perception of that, being desensitized
Totally.
to feelings and desensitized to what your life used to look like. You no longer go to the gym. You don't have your life. You're living an alternative life. And it's so incredibly isolating and painful and hopeless in many, many times. So this is an incredible conversation to have. You're talking to us as a pioneer of, this type of therapy for Lyme disease. And like you're saying, and this is what I want to understand about ketamine. Do you feel that for you, obviously you're not a doctor, I'm not a doctor, this is your own personal experience, but for you, did it lift the depression, or do you feel like it actually helped? I mean, does it actually have any bearing on Lyme disease itself, or is it just the mental health component of Lyme disease? And what do you feel like it did for you specifically?
Whew. Getting emotional.
We're both sitting here like I'm going, okay, I'm going to talk for a second, let her recalibrate. but it's so I'm just loving this conversation because people are so hungry for this answer.
And I'll break it into a few parts. So, one, just validating the pain, mental health pain that people are in, not just with Lyme, but any chronic illness, any disability is beyond anything anyone who is healthy could ever imagine. One. Two, as you know, with neurological Lyme disease, there's inflammation in the brain, and that can change our personality. I had scans done at NYU. I think it was my left or my right frontal lobe had brain abnormalities. So I feel like the ketamine and other plant medicines and animal medicines I've worked with literally have rewired my brain, have created new growth, I've literally felt it like cleaning my brain stem. It is wild. So there's a lot we don't know about how this actually works, but I can tell you for the first time in 15 years, I felt happy. And I feel like that's the gift, right? And I think we can also get to the point for on prescription medications for mental health. I truly believe they can serve a time and a purpose, but did any doctor ever ask me, hey, is this still the right dose for you? Is this still the right medication? Is this, how's it going? No. And I was on duloxetine since I was like 15, so by the time I was 27, journeying with ketamine, no one in the Western healthcare system had ever reevaluated my mental health because I was quote unquote stable. I was quote unquote high functioning. So much more we can continue to unpack, but I think the biggest sensation I felt and what I experienced in my waking life, in my sober life, is that my brain has been rewired, and it feels like miracle grow for your brain and your body.
Yeah. And even just retraining the brain with or without ketamine, it just brings these neurons back together. It begins firing again. We all experience brain fog during Lyme disease, and also, bouts of depression, different levels of depression, whether it lasts for a day or years. And it's actually regenerating those neurons to fire again and to rejuvenate themselves. And that's a scientific fact that they can rejuvenate themselves, but they can't without your help. So whatever you choose to help yourself rejuvenate is your choice. So in a typical session, talk me through it. what are you doing? Where are you laying? What is the person the person that's facilitating your journey say to you? What are you seeing? I know you said it's not hallucinogenic, but then what is it?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, let me do my best to unpack that. So there's many different ways ketamine can be administered. I think most common people are going into a ketamine clinic and it's either an IV or an intramuscular injection, or it's S-ketamine, which is like a nasal spray. The lozenges, that's the only thing I've experienced. So I just want to frame my experience in that. And I've also only done it in the home with, an online guide. So I remember I learned the phrase, which now I've found is like very common in the psychedelic healing space, which is trust, let go, and be open. So that was the mantra that they taught me. And anytime I'd feel waves of like, oh, that's big, um, I would come back to that. And I was actually completely by myself. Like I said, my husband was in the other room. The guide, we
Are
like
you
checked in.
lying down?
Yeah, I would lie down on the couch, or I had like a mat on the floor with like cozy pillows. And it's pretty short. It's like 45 minutes. You keep the lozenge in your mouth for about 7 minutes, then you spit it out and you feel it pretty quickly. Um, for me, I think just comparing other journeys, it does feel psychedelic. I don't know why it's not considered one. It's considered a dissociative anesthetic. But I actually was never dissociating. I was seeing traumatic events in my life, which I now know that trauma contributed to the inflammation in my body and contributed to me not ever fully getting better. Um, but what I would experience would I would revisit something traumatic from like a higher perspective, like that movie screen analogy. So I would see like this really horrible thing that happened, but I would see it from like a higher realm. Like I was looking down in a very loving perspective on something that in my very 3D life felt completely overwhelming, completely dysregulating. So, and it was without judgment and it was with love. And it was like, oh, that's why this happened in my life. And
Sort
I
of
think
more observatory.
observatory, that's a fantastic word. I've heard people having very scary experiences with ketamine. And what I keep hearing is it's usually they're in a very sterile clinic with an IV medication. I will say none of my experiences were ever scary. And I'll also say it's really important to name I had a psychedelic therapist, an integration coach working with me. So it wasn't like I would just do these journeys. I think I did like one a week for like 8 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever it was. But then I'd have at least 2 sessions with my therapist who was trained in ketamine therapy to unpack what I learned, what I discovered. So I want to just caution people if they're going to explore these realms. Sometimes when you go to these clinics, it's kind of like pump and dump, like they don't give you that mental health support after. So I just want to caution people to really do their homework. And if they choose to go down this route, I loved being able to have the right set and setting, it's called. And for me, that was my home.
So you're the person that's sitting with you on your journey. Are they guiding you, or are they just there in case you need to tap into reality for a second? And can you open your eyes and fully recognize where you are and bring yourself, kind of ground yourself? Or no, I'm just curious. And also, does the person helping you journey, are they helping you get to different visualizations or realizations, or are they just there in case something and it's really your own journey by yourself?
I've heard all different mixes, so I'll speak to my experience. I was always fully alone, and I would just check in with someone who they did call a guide, but was not a therapist. They were trained in helping me prepare and integrate. So Mind Bloom is pretty cool. And again, this is like not sponsored. If they want to sponsor me, they can reach out. But they had these playlist tracks. So I would say like, oh, I want to look at anxiety. And they'd have a whole 45-minute playlist journey with like ambient frequencies to help me take me into healing anxiety. And then they had like follow-up group integration programs where I could join a group. And they did have a facilitator who would help us to unpack. But really, I was like by myself for the hour. And then I would rejoin a Zoom call with this guide. I never, not to my knowledge, I took my eye mask off, but you don't feel like you're on some other planet or dimension. If anything, I felt fully in my body and allowing my spirit to travel.
Amazing. That's amazing. And then so after your 8 sessions of that, and by the way, how often would you do them? And have you ever felt the need to do any of them after that?
Mhm. Yeah, great question. So I think I like took a break for like a year. And then I had a few loved ones in my life pass away and was going, just continuing on the healing journey. And I was like, I think I need to do this again. So I did sign up for another round, I would say like a year later, um, which was helpful, but actually I think I didn't even do them all because I was like, I think I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Not because anything like bad or scary happened, but like because it worked, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's definitely something you can come back to. I want to just caution people. Some people believe ketamine can be addictive. So I really want to caution people just to take this in a therapeutic space. Recreation is something totally separate. But yeah, there is the real risk of ketamine addiction. So working with someone who's really trained in this space, I think is really critical.
And after your treatments, did they advise you to do anything specific?
They definitely had a lot of somatic practices. As I mentioned, they had the group ceremony, the group circles, which I could join as many as I wanted. Um,
Did they
Journaling.
did they say like you shouldn't go out after an experience or anything like that?
I don't remember anything specific like that, but again, like this was like peak COVID. Like I wasn't going anywhere,
Right.
and I had pretty much like insulated myself from the internet at that point. But I did a ton of journaling, and I'd share that anyone exploring any type of psychedelic therapy, it really helps to reignite your creative gifts.
Hmm. And and I want to mention, you mentioned that you basically started this during COVID, on the onset of COVID, because you couldn't go into somebody's office. And maybe that was the best thing for you, to be able to do it in the comfort of your own home. But it was at around that same time that antidepressants, in their conventional sense, made headlines because they were basically debunked in a lot of ways. And they were saying, that basically depression is a disease as opposed to a condition that would be quote unquote cured by an antidepressant. Do you have any thoughts about that? And you've now done both. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, wow. Never put words to it before, but I feel like the difference was antidepressants allowed me to kind of put a mask on and allowed me to function, but ketamine and other psychedelic therapies healed me and allowed me to not need outside support. So I'm just thinking back to like what we were talking about. Like I felt new neurons like growing in my brain, Um, and from my perspective, like so much of what I think society is experiencing as depression is actually just responses to the environment and the world we're living in. I do not think it is our nature to be depressed people. I think it is our birthright to live in joy and happiness and in connection. And how society is set up, right now is to disconnect us from ourselves, which I think can contribute to depression. So, yes, did depression run in my family? But also, so many of my journeys showed me like there were ancestral things that I needed to heal for my collective family line, which were the reasons they were exhibiting depression. Like, we are not depressed people. Depression was a symptom of the environment we were in. So I've actually never talked about that publicly. And again, I'm not a doctor, but this is what my experience was, having now experienced both. So again, I think there's a time and place for conventional mental health support with medication. Like, if the house is on fire, you need to put out the fire first, right? But if you put a girl like me at 15 on this, and then at 27 years old, she's still on that same dose of that same drug, what's the real problem here?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and
Yeah,
talk
that was
about,
heavy.
let's go even deeper. Let's talk about ayahuasca. Ayahuasca's also been a buzzword as of late, and many people travel to different countries to try an ayahuasca trip, as they call them. And I've had friends of mine do it. It's becoming more mainstream. Mainly, they are going and seeking a real clarity on a specific issue. So, talk to me about your ayahuasca experience. Where did you do it? How many times did you do it? And we'll just kind of get into that too.
Whew, never talked about this besides in the article.
Sorry, I mean it's Lyme time. I got a good
Lyme
beat.
time. So, where do I want to start here? I'm going to come out and say it.
Before ketamine or after ketamine? Try.
About a year and a half after.
Okay.
So, this is what I've heard over and over again, and this was my experience. Ayahuasca found me, and I wasn't looking for a journey. I wasn't looking for a ceremony. It was actually a friend from college who posted on his Instagram story how he healed cancer with ayahuasca. And he was bringing the chief of an indigenous tribe, the Hunikuin tribe, to his home in Guatemala. And anyone who needed help and healing was welcomed into his family's home. And we weren't really like good friends in college. We just like knew each other. And 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later, maybe, my husband and I flew down to Guatemala, and we were there for a retreat, like a weekend retreat that he had organized. And it was facilitated by one of the chiefs of the Hunikuin tribe. Again, I'm going to say it, ayahuasca saved my life. And ketamine saved my life in that my mental health didn't become a dumpster fire, but my physical symptoms were still debilitating, and I was still bedbound at this point. And my neuropathy from CIDP getting worse and worse and worse. So I was like, what do I have to lose to drink some plant tea? Right. And of course, I did my homework. My friend sent me articles about this chief. He'd traveled to the US. He's been a representative from his people to the UN. I learned that this was truly their form of religion. This was their sacred medicine. I knew where it was coming from, and I left the country. And it cleaned my body, Allie. It cleaned my mind. It cleaned my soul. It cleaned my spirit. And I describe it as it reconnected me to the grid of life. Ayahuasca is kind of, you can't put words on it, but to answer your question, 3 weeks later, after I had met the chief, I spent Christmas with him and his family in their village. I went 3 days down the Amazon River with a group of fellow travelers who I just met like weeks earlier. So I pretty much went by myself, spoke no Portuguese, and found myself in their community healing ceremonies. And they work with many other plant and animal medicines. And they always say, like, we don't heal you. the plants heal you, and they really are just creating that very safe environment. And with almost all ayahuasca traditions, sound and singing and music is critical. So their healing songs carried a frequency which kind of enter your body. And for me, I would literally feel like I was in surgery so many times. I have never talked about this before, but I feel like I had spiritual surgery by plant being consciousness. I would have what they call doctor spirits visit me, which I truly believe are real entities in other dimensions that these plants have relationships with. And I would feel them entering my body. Remember one time I felt them restitching my brain stem. I kid you not. Another time, ayahuasca usually comes to people as a snake. The serpent started coming towards me, and she was like, "Open your mouth." And I was like, and I just felt this like serpent enter my body, and she went all into my gut. I was nauseous as hell, and I felt her energy going through my intestines, cleaning me. Probably puked in a bucket after that. There's a lot of puking involved. But it's called limpia. It's a cleaning. It's a cleaning. It's not like oh my God, I just took so much medication. I'm herxing and I'm puking or in the toilet. Like this is like, please get this out of me. This is it's a cleaning. So crazy thing. So I did 10 ceremonies within a year with the Huni Queen tribe outside of the United States. Um, and I was getting my blood work done. Like the really cool thing, I was like, I want the data, I want the science. So I was getting my blood work done almost every month. I was also still doing ozone. And I remember my doctor looked at the blood work and she was just like, "You're not sick anymore." And I didn't feel sick anymore, but the blood work confirmed it. And I was like,
Whoa.
holy shit. So I have the picture on my Instagram.
Um,
She had like a disco ball in her office, and that was her version of ringing the bell.
uh-huh.
And I danced under the disco ball, and I feel like I've been healed for the past 2 years. And
Incredible.
there's so much more I want to say on this topic. This is truly plant spirit medicine. I don't care what anyone says. This is not a drug. We are not doing this in recreational settings. This is community healing in ceremony, in communion with God. This, there's been horror stories, of course, but I just feel so, so blessed that I have been afforded incredible and safe environments to heal in community with. And one thing I want to just add to this, which really was the game changer. So, like 10 ceremonies, I felt like I got my life back. I'm not sick anymore. But I still had a lot of symptoms like neuropathy, really difficult pain management days, still some brain fog at times. So, two other things I want to talk about. One, there's what's called dietas. So, dietas are in combination with ayahuasca and other master plants. These plants are not psychedelic in and of themselves, and actually, people can take them on their own. I've done this. The master plants work in conjunction, and it's an energetic agreement you make with these master plants for a period of time, and they continue to heal your body on an even deeper level than even just the ayahuasca does. So, I feel like we could do a whole episode on that. I've done 3 dietas at this point, and I did my last one, very long, about 4 months. And it was the first time I was able to look in the mirror and being like, I won. So there's that. And then I want to talk about combo as well when you feel it's appropriate, because they serve combo in conjunction with ayahuasca in the Amazon.
I want to talk about combo, but just going back to what you said, I won. Those are, that's just such a positive, powerful statement. And I think it's what every person going through chronic illness wants to be able to say. I mean, I won. I'm on the other side of it. That is a thing in my past. That is no longer me. I am no longer it. I no longer have it. It's not my possession anymore. I release that. And so to say I won is, I think, probably the goal for everybody listening. And it sounds like ayahuasca is much more intense than ketamine in terms of the, what you're visualizing and seeing. I think it actually lasts a lot longer, hours, as opposed to the 45 minutes. And yeah, I think that if somebody went in with the mindset of letting go and being open to what they're seeing. And if they're seeing something that's saying, do this, being willing to do it and feeling their body being cleansed, like you said. And if there's some purging going on, that they would actually see that as a good thing, that this is a cleansing, that it actually probably felt good to do that in the moment. And I can't even imagine the euphoria you probably felt after each one of these sessions. And I do believe in plant medicine, and I do believe that for everything that goes on in our human experience, there's a plant out there to be the counterbalance in whatever way we choose to use it. So yeah, ayahuasca, and I do know that some people, some shamans and different individuals can do it here in the United States. Um, you don't necessarily have to travel to Guatemala or be with maybe a tribe person. You certainly want to get a good quality and certainly want to have somebody leading you through being that leader, because you certainly do not want to ever attempt to do this by yourself. And you want to be, in a safe environment, an environment where they've seen it all and they can handle anything that might come up for you. But a lot of times you might even be in a yurt or some sort of
Yeah.
sweating.
It's here in the United States for
Okay.
sure. It is here. It is in people travel serving this medicine. For me, it was pretty important to leave the country just in terms of, in part, wanting to work with indigenous wisdom keepers. For me, that was really important. But I will just name many of these wisdom keepers have now trained apprentices who are traveling in Europe, in Canada, in the United States. So I'd say the biggest thing is to do your research and your homework, because this is no joke. You can find safe places to do this, but please do your homework, do your research, and trust your gut.
Great advice. And that brings us to combo. And I don't know anything about combo, so you'll have to talk to me as though I'm a kindergartner. But
Awesome.
I want to hear about it, because your experience with combo has actually brought you to learning more and more and more about it, actually becoming a practitioner and an intuitive guide. And tell us about your experience with combo.
I'm so excited. I've also never talked about this. I'll back up to first, what is combo and then how it found me. So first, combo is a secretion from a frog that lives in a tree in the Amazon. The word translates to giant monkey tree frog. They're really big. If you go on my website, hamsahealing.life, you can see a picture of me with the frog. They sing really, really loud. So when I first got off the boat in the village in Brazil, I was like, what is this sound? And they're like, it's the frog. So how it's used traditionally in the Amazon is as a cleaning ritual, they call it the vaccine of the forest, and also to rid the body of heavy and negative energies. So it was served to me while I was with the tribe the day after an ayahuasca ceremony. And their belief is that whatever you didn't purge out, just want to share people, you probably will be throwing up, you probably will be having diarrhea, you probably will be shaking, you could get dehydrated. All very real things. But they serve it the day after. So whatever toxins or energies didn't leave the body, combo helps and serves as a purgative. So
Like a
most people,
big binder.
think of it that way. I usually would take charcoal after.
Uh-huh.
Um, so that was my introduction to how it's used traditionally, and it's applied via a small burn mark in the skin, typically on the upper arm or the lower leg, traditionally for women or for people with chronic illnesses. The men will get it sometimes on their chest. Um, so they make a superficial burn mark to remove the top layer of skin, and this accesses your lymphatic system. A combo can only be applied in this way. So once the top layer of skin is removed, if you're not getting it like literally fresh, like scraped off the frog, it looks like a mucus. They call it a secretion. I want to be very, very clear with people. This is not a poison. This is not a toxin. It is a bioactive peptide secretion that crosses the blood-brain barrier from a frog. So, when I was telling Dr. Kelly, I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. It's peptide therapy. She's like, oh, I give people peptide injections. It's still being studied. There is research about combo in the Western world, but we do know that there's over 60 bioactive peptides. And each secretion, the tribe was telling me, it's based off of the plants that the frog are eating. So if you put this frog in a lab in Miami, you're not going to get that healing medicine. And again, I'm calling it medicine because they call it medicina. It translates to the word medicine. So just know, for context for your listeners, I'm going to use the word medicine. Each ceremony is completely different in what you feel in your body, but essentially, you will drink a lot of water. My training with the tribe was like you drink till you're full. They put the secretion on, which kind of looks like a booger, if I'm honest, especially when it's like reconstituted. They will dry it on a bamboo stick. You'll add some water, we'll reconstitute it. And then depending on what type of treatment the person is getting, sometimes it's like literally 1 point of this. When I was first working with combo, it was like 1 to 3 points. And then we can work with larger doses in different parts of the body. But once it's on you and you've drank that water, you will feel it literally starting to scan your body, and it's really intelligent. So it will go to the parts of your body that need healing most first. So for me, my very first ceremony, it went right into my gut, and I was nauseous as hell. Purged within like 7 minutes, which is pretty quick. Most people feel their heart starting to pump. They might get flushed, sometimes a little dizzy, but like you won't pass out, but you feel like your body just circulating, your blood moving. You literally feel, in my experience, repair of the body. So for me, I credit combo with healing CIDP. I've talked to many people, and I'm not the only one. This is healing illnesses that we are being told are not able to be cured. So I know I'm jumping around because I'm just so passionate about it, but the long story short, the combo will be in you, on you, circulating in your body, anywhere from, I've had it on as little as 7 minutes until I've had some kind of purge, or now I keep it on closer to an hour. And you can work with different doses, different places on the body, depending on what each person is going through. And a purge doesn't always look like vomiting in a bucket. Like if you Google this, you're going to find like frog poison and you purge, you throw up in a bucket. Like that's not what is happening. Half of my clients don't even physically throw up. A lot of time the purging is somatic and it's energetic and people are shaking. For me, so many of my ceremonies, and even the last time I served myself, it was a somatic nervous system release.
Mm.
I had a client a month ago. He was just crying. He was crying. He was releasing grief. He was releasing old trauma. And sometimes you got to run to the bathroom. Again, it's Olympia. It's you are cleaning.
So it's a little bit more of a physical purge than a psychological purge.
Yeah, it definitely, I would say, like cleans your mind, but this is not a psychedelic. It is unregulated in the United States, so it's technically legal. And you are very much in your body. You can receive very clear downloads as your body becomes cleaned, your
Mm.
energetic field becomes cleaned, but it is probably the most physical experience you are ever going to experience, probably so far that I've ever had in my life. And I will say, like, now I microdose it. I use very small amounts, and it's really quite blissful. And it's helped me so much to combat any waves of depression or anxiety that have come back, or just pain flare ups. Sometimes I still get bouts of pain, bouts of neuropathy. So I always like know when it's time to do combo again.
Wow. And so it can
That's a
last
lot.
anywhere from 7 minutes to 2 hours. You're
About 1 hour.
okay. Do you need to be lying down? Or can you be just
Can't lie
watching
down.
TV type thing?
No.
No.
Um,
Okay.
so
I'm
yeah,
trying to
so
figure
you're
out if you're still going through something like psychological when you go do combo.
I would say almost always there is some kind of mental revelation, mental health healing. So it looks very different in the Amazon versus the ceremonies I host. So in the Amazon, they will burn a hole on your arm. They'll scrape it off the frog. They'll put on your arm, and they tell you to sit on a tree stump with some hopefully clean water. And then it's super strong, fresh, and you're just left like on your own.
Yeah.
When I help clients, it's about a 3 hour ceremony. And I do this because it creates a really safe environment for the nervous system. I also work with two other legal plant medicines called Hape and Sananga, which we can talk more about. I have an opening ritual. We get really, really clear on why you are here. And I have people sit on a mat. You're not allowed to lay down. That would actually be dangerous. But most people are kind of sitting in like the lotus position, or they're sitting just very grounded. And my job is to make sure you're safe, to make sure you're drinking water when you need to. I clean puke buckets for fun. And then we'll work with other plants to help just clear the space energetically, and always a time to process. So these are truly ceremonies, but that is not how, in my experience, it has been traditionally served.
So when you do it with your own clients, they are in person with you.
Always,
This is
yeah.
not something like ketamine where you can do it with a guide online. This is always in person. And where are you sourcing your combo from?
So I'm so fortunate that because of the relationship I've built with the chief of the Huni Queen tribe, they actually don't sell their combo. I had known him for about a year, and I was like, "Can I buy this from you? Can I buy this from you?" And he was like, "No." But it was a year later, I think after my 10th ceremony, and I actually had assisted him at a larger group retreat. When he was serving combo to people, he was like, "I'm going to give this to you. And in exchange, please donate a percentage of your ceremonies back to our community." So that's exactly what I do. I know exactly where it's come from. I use the same combo stick on my clients as I use on myself. And it lasts a very long time when it's basically like dehydrated. So it's actually funny, like a few days ago, I finished my very first combo stick, which I got through my training group, and they get it through a um, basically like a co-op with another tribe in Peru. And so you do have to be very, very careful about where you get it from. Like I've seen it sold on Etsy. Like, please don't do that.
Right.
I want to be very clear if someone's looking to explore combo, please see someone who has had training. I've gone through extensive training with Combo International, which is a group here in the United States. I've done 2 levels of their training. But I think one of the most unique things that I bring is having actually visited where this medicine is from and being gifted. I know exactly who it came from, the like trees it came from. So I don't take this lightly. And I want to say, like, I also don't help everyone. The people I help with combo are one, sick and tired of being sick and tired, even if they're not facing chronic illness, it might be some other big thing in their life. And two, they are really willing to do the inner work and they know that I am not healing them. They are healing themselves in relationship with these sacred plant and animal medicines and with spirit. It can be a very spiritual experience for people.
I'm sure, it's a great final piece of the puzzle. I'm sure that, well, I'm guessing that a few of these that we've talked about today might have looked different if you were doing them in an acute state of Lyme disease. It might be too much for some people in that initial terrible space. But once you get a little footing and once you're able to sort of get beyond the actual bacteria part of it and into now, okay, now I'm left with the trauma. Now I'm left living in fear. Now I don't want to go outside and walk around in the grass or the leaves. I don't want to enjoy nature anymore. I mean, when you're kind of stuck with that or, you know, and you can be stuck in fight or flight for the rest of your life, as we all know. So I would think that this would be an amazing, it's a piece of the puzzle, but it can also be one of the final pieces in terms of really finding your freedom and saying, I won. I mean, that's just so powerful. Tell our listeners where they can find you. I know that you're in development right now for your own company, and what's the best way for them to get a hold of you and to start working with you?
Oh, thank you so much. So Mighty Well is alive and well and growing. So if they're still on the journey of having vascular access, which is, a PICC line, a port, or taking, a lot of medications, we can definitely help and support you. You can find us at mightywell.com or our products are on Amazon. And we've just expanded to being able to sell medical supplies. So we are able to sell saline flushes, IV saline bags, alcohol wipes, you name it. We now have it.
Best masks in the world too, I will say.
Yes, I still wear a mask, okay, especially on an airplane or like at the grocery store, like not trying to get sick here.
Oh, they're so comfortable, you guys, and our whole family has them, so it's great.
And then on the healing side, you can find me at humsahealing.life. I am going through a brand update, so the company is going to be called Shepherd. Later in 2025. And part of this expansion is I found a lot of my gifts actually tie to the spirit world. I am a medium and a channeler. So I'm helping a lot of people going through big life changes. And I describe it as like, I'm just the translator for the spirit world. They kind of take over my body and I tell them, some people I'm like, this is what they're saying. I'm just being told to tell you this. So the channeling work is definitely expanding and growing. My public speaking work as well. I'm actually here today at Babson College because I spoke to a group of female entrepreneurs about remembering their sacred medicine.
Amazing.
And then my combo work will most likely still remain under this Shepherd brand. So
would it be shepherd.com, do you think? Or
we're still in the website, but the best place to find me definitely would be at my Instagram account, which is at Emily Anna, EMILYANA _ Levy, LEVY. So we'll put that on the link. I respond to as many DMs as I can. I'm just really honored to share what I've never felt safe to share before, Allie. So thank you to you and your listeners and your viewers. Like, I just want people to know that healing is possible. I want people to say yes to their lives in even bigger ways. I want them to live a life without pain, whether that's physical, emotional, or spiritual. And lastly, I just want my story to be a testament to the power not only of saying yes to your life, but to these transformational psychedelic implant and animal medicines.
Thank you so much. Your mission is being accomplished as we speak right now. It's happening. It is in existence. It is there, and we're all able to tap into it at any time. And thank you for being a conduit for us to realize our full potential, to realize that we are able to heal, to let go of our labels and our misconceptions and our past traumas that hold all of us back. It's a very, very powerful thing that you're doing. And it's truly, when people say life transformational, this is what I'm talking about. This is not some like weekend yoga retreat. This is changing your cellular makeup. This is really changing your brain and enabling people to heal in a much, much bigger and much deeper way. Only you know your own possibilities, and you don't even probably know a fraction of them. So thank you so much for being for teaching us today and for being so transparent. You did great, and we can't wait to hear what you have in store for us at Shepherd. So much love. I'm giving you a big air hug from California. Thank you. You healed me today. Thank you. And
Oh,
I hope to have you back on for episode number 3.
let's do it.
All right. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lyme Time podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe on your favorite platform to be notified of new episodes. Remember, this is not intended to be medical advice. Take your findings to your provider to see if something is right for you. No two bodies heal the same, and your doctor knows you and your labs best. You can find out more about the Tick Chicks at thetickchicks.com, and if you subscribe there, you'll be notified of upcoming events like the in-person Losing Lyme retreat that I host. I also have shopping pages dedicated to helping your at-home symptom relief, as well as a private support group. Join the Tick Chicks tribe on Instagram, YouTube, Meta, TikTok, Pinterest, and X. You are not alone.